And people that didn't know me a month before, now we're all standing in victory lane celebrating winning the greatest race in the world. And I remember thinking, where's Dale? I mean, how come he's not here yet? And Dale Jr., how come he's not here? I'm sure they're coming, right?
The most satisfying area for a driver to be is in victory lane. Knowing that they are hopping out of the car, being the best during race weekend must be the greatest feeling for a driver. On August 10th, Connor Zilisch was on cloud 9 once again after another tremendous victory at the Xfinity race at Watkins Glen. Although there may have been some controversial moments in the race, the driver overall deserved the victory and was heading into Victory Circle to celebrate with his team for the 6th time in 2025. As the driver climbed out of the car, it was the standard procedure for the winner: stand on the driver's side bottom window sill and face the cameras to take your celebratory photo. However, on this day, the victory celebration is about to take an abrupt and shocking turn.
Oh, he went down on the cage stand.
Oh my gosh, he fell.
Oh, damn it! His freaking head!
Let's go!
While Zilisch faced the crowd, his foot slipped from the bottom window sill. The cause of this was due to a mixture of a loose window net along with liquids on the car from the team celebrating. The result of this combination led to a slippery surface for the 19-year-old victor. As Connor Zilisch turned, his left foot slipped into the race car, causing the driver to lose balance and land towards the concrete head first. The impact was bad enough, but to see the driver lie on the ground unconscious was an eerie sight to behold. The coverage was cut to commercial, as no one knew the condition of the driver from the fall, but everyone knew that something was terribly wrong. The celebration was cut short, and the driver was then transported to the infield medical center, where the driver regained consciousness but was still injured. Connor Zilisch had suffered a broken collarbone from the fall, which resulted in the driver withdrawing from the following cup race the next day. It was definitely a scary incident that many wondered what the recovery time would be for Zilisch, and it turned out the driver would miss 0 Xfinity races. Thanks to top-tier medical work, along with a little break in the schedule, Zilisch was able to slightly recover from the injury to at the very least start the following race at Daytona 2 weeks later to receive credit for the final result for the 88 machine, a result that ended up being a victory thanks to Parker Kligerman's skills behind the wheel. In fact, ever since the fall, Zilisch has been on a tear in the series that has only been seen one time in the history of the sport, a record that may potentially be broken by the time this video is put out. So in the end, this story has relatively a positive ending. However, once the checkered flag dropped and fans drew their attention on over to victory lane, there was a hush in the air when cameras caught the driver making the turn towards the crowd, losing his balance and forever making it one of the most infamous moments in victory lane celebration history.
Hi, my name is Vanillawafers. I'm the 2025 Liquid Death Pro driver, and I also teach the Liquid Death driving program. All right, Johnny, finish this hashtag. Death to horsepower? Get out. Get out of my classroom. Just go. Most people get confused on our driving program and what it is that we're focused on. Need I remind you guys that we're murdering thirst, not people, okay? Our goal in this racing program is not only be successful on the racing side, but also be successful in the iced tea side. So we're all clear, guys. It's left turn, left turn, left turn, and left turn. Good. So we all understand chapter 4, right? I think when you're teaching a class like this, you're going to have some good days. So you see, guys, the best point of entry is right here near the bottom, and you just go ham. You just go And obviously, you're going to have some bad days. Oh, come on, Jim. We both know that is the worst way to get into the liquid death machine. Look, Darby, I don't care if you set the track record this morning. You need to understand that this tall boy right here only has 30 calories, much less sugar than the rival iced teas, and tastes so much better. This thing is legit. I'm starting to realize this was maybe more about liquid death iced tea than it was a racing school. Well, guys, I think we just learned one thing, and that is to go to liquiddeath.com and make sure to grab yourself a drink of liquid death. Don't be scared, it's just iced tea.
In the beginning years of NASCAR held many uncertainties for how far the sport could be truly elevated in motorsports. Bill France obviously had big intentions for it, but in the first couple of decades, fans were trying to decide who would be the face of the series on the driver's end. In the 50s, fans favored the likes of Tim Flock, Herb Thomas, Fireball Roberts, and Lee Petty, just to name a few, but by the time the 60s came around, most of those drivers were either hanging up the helmet or racing on a part-time basis. People were wondering who could be the next best thing. While the Grand National Series was racing on the dirts and pavements throughout the South, there was one driver that was making a name for himself in the modified division, and that was a driver from Norfolk, Virginia, and his name was Joe Weatherly. And many knew the driver not only for his skills behind the wheel, but also for his amazing personality. While many knew him for his nickname Little Joe, he was also known to many as the Clown Prince of Racing, a nickname well deserved for his antics around the garage. From stories of wearing Peter Pan outfits while taking laps out on the racetrack, to partying the nights away with one of the all-time favorites of Curtis Turner, Joe Weatherly was nothing short of being the life of the party when it came to the race weekends. But when it came time for racing, it was all business for the driver, as once he started running in the Grand National Series, Joe was winning in about 11% of the races he entered. In just 230 starts, Joe Weatherly scored 25 victories, 105 top 5s, and 153 top 10 finishes. Not only that, but he was also able to score back-to-back championships in both 1962 and 1963, beating the likes of Ned Jarrett, David Pearson, and Richard Petty respectively. He was clearly a fan favorite and seemed to be the next big thing in NASCAR going into the 60s and beyond. So what in the world happened? Well, at the start of the 1964 season, it would only be the 5th race of the season when everything changed for the NASCAR world. At Riverside International Raceway on January 19th of 1964, Joe Weatherly entered the race in his number 8 1964 Mercury with Bud Moore as the car owner, hoping for a consistent run around the road course. Around lap 85, everything was going normal for the two-time champion as he headed into turn number 6. But then he suddenly lost control of the car and headed straight into the steel wall. From what appeared to be a brake failure on the 8 car, Joe Weatherly ran into the wall at full speed at a direct impact. The car then ricocheted off the wall and headed towards the dirt embankment on the opposite end of the road. When officials came to check on the driver, it was unfortunately clear that Joe Weatherly had lost his life on impact. A statement that seems quite shocking when watching the wreck multiple times, as yes, the cars had less safety standards and the walls were nothing but pure metal, but still, to immediately pronounce the driver had died meant something else had to have happened for it to be that obvious, right? Well, unfortunately, there was. Joe, like other drivers, was afraid of being trapped in the car if the car were to ever catch on fire for any particular reason. Because of this, Weatherly did not wear a seatbelt while in the car, nor did he have a safety net on the driver's side of the car. So when he hit the wall in turn 6, his whole body was thrown up into the wall with the car, which caused the immediate death. The passing was a major tragedy, as NASCAR's most popular driver was gone immediately after winning the championship. It felt like fans found their next driver, and he was immediately taken away. After this, seatbelts soon became a requirement in the sport, along with more safety measures throughout the decade. As for Bud Moore, Joe Weatherly's car owner, he decided to retire using the number 8 in his lineup in memory of the Virginia driver. Today, Joe Weatherly is rightly remembered as the biggest what-if pioneer in NASCAR, as even though he was in his early 40s, there was a good shot he could have taken multiple championships away from Richard Petty and others and been known as one of the greatest in the sport. Sadly, we will never truly know how many more victories Joe Weatherly could have earned because of that fateful day at Riverside. In a story that was discussed on the channel a couple of months ago, we dived into the tragic story of Kevin Grubb, an up-and-coming driver who had his career shortened due to some unfortunate circumstances. While we were discussing his story, there was one section that was discussed where a team decided that it was best to move on with a new driver rather than sign the established Grubb to another year. Although, that plan fell through. Why was that? Well, it was because of a very unfortunate moment in a practice session, which has led to a permanent rule in NASCAR that we see to this very day. Deborah Renshaw was an up-and-coming driver in the ARCA series that was looking to become the next up-and-coming female to make it big in NASCAR. Controversy surrounded the driver throughout the early stages of her career. However, her talent behind the wheel was never questioned, as she became the first female driver to lead an ARCA series event at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. With 5 top 11 finishes in all 5 of her starts in 2002, Team Bristol had signed her on to run the number 54 car in the Busch Series for 2003. Things were on the up and up. That was until the season finale race at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the ARCA series. While the practice session was underway, everything was going according to usual. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, as drivers and teams were looking to get a feel for what they had around the 1.5-mile racetrack. There were only a handful of drivers that were out on the track at the time, so many people were not paying attention to the racetrack itself, including some of the spotters who were not up in the stands at the beginning of the practice session. While Deborah Renshaw got up to speed to make her run, her spotter was one of those members who were not in position to see out onto the racetrack. Everyone would soon realize that this would be a tragic mistake. While coming off the exit of Turn 4, a driver by the name of Eric Martin, a journeyman in the series, got loose out of the exit of Turn 4 and came to rest on the racetrack. The officials waved the caution. However, drivers were narrowly avoiding the driver, mostly due to the fact that many of them didn't have someone over the radio let them know that a car was resting in a part of one of the fastest sections of the racetrack. Eric Martin started radioing into his team that he was alright and started to undo his belts to exit out of his car. That's when Deborah Renshaw came around the corner at full speed.
Now, like the others, Renshaw clearly had no idea the car was there.
And he appeared to be moving around when his car was then struck on the driver's side by a car driven by Deborah Renshaw at an estimated 160 miles an hour. That impact occurred more than 8 seconds after Martin's car had come to a complete stop. Track. The 25-year-old Renshaw was transported to a local hospital and was alert and talking and is listed in fair condition.
A now minor one-car incident has now turned into a horrific 2-car collision, as the stalled 2 car was basically demolished by Renshaw's 75 machine. When officials approached the scene, they found both cars destroyed beyond repairs. An engine completely ripped out of the car, a conscious Renshaw suffering minor injuries from the crash, and a grimly sight of Eric Martin, who passed away from the impact of the crash as he was in the process of getting out of the car. It was a scene that should have never happened, and one that both Deborah Renshaw and ARCA were heavily criticized for. The two accidents happened 16 seconds apart from each other, so to see the impact like that happen was unacceptable, to say the least. NASCAR viewed the incident and made the immediate rule change and decided to make the rule that spotters must be in position at all times when cars are on the track to make sure that an incident like this never happens again. A rule that I believe all of us agree is a good call. As for Deborah Renshaw, her Busch Series plans never came to fruition after this incident, as the crash was marked by too much scrutiny by many people in motorsports, causing her to take an extensive leave from the sport until her return in late 2004, where she ran part-time in the Truck Series before running one full-time season in 2005, making her the first woman to do so in one of NASCAR's top 3 divisions, a minor spotlight in her short career, but definitely one that is overshadowed by a moment darkened by a poor decision by many in the garage area. Our last story doesn't dive into a NASCAR driver, or technically a NASCAR sanctioned event, but rather a reporter who has been around the NASCAR scene for multiple decades. Dr. Jerry Punch has been known for his on-track reporting and lead commentary for races with ESPN from the 80s through the 2010s, especially the infamous moment with Kurt Busch in 2011.
Makes me feel a lot better, Doctor. Can you get this mother in my face?
However, what many fans sometimes forget is why he is called Dr. Jerry Punch. It's not just a random moniker given to him, as Jerry Punch has an impressive background in the world of medicine. The broadcaster graduated from Wake Forest University School of Medicine in the late 70s with a medical degree, and worked as an emergency medicine physician in the Florida region. One of those medical centers happened to be the infamous Halifax Medical Center. This created a bridge for Dr. Jerry Punch to eventually put down the medical supplies and take a role in the world of racing as a broadcaster. By 1980, Jerry Punch began broadcasting with MRN, and within 4 years was a pit reporter for ESPN. So why are we discussing Dr. Jerry Punch? It's an impressive resume, sure, but not something that most people would consider a moment in history where time froze. Well, it's because of this impressive background that Punch has been able to save multiple members in the NASCAR garage throughout the years. One of the more well-known stories was back in 1988 involving future Hall of Famer and champion Rusty Wallace in a practice session at Bristol. While going around the track, Wallace cut a tire and slammed into the outside wall, causing the car to violently flip end over end before coming to rest. Rusty Wallace was going in and out of consciousness while in the car, but thanks to Dr. Jerry Punch running onto the track with the help of Dale Sr. ripping off the front windshield, the pit reporter was able to open the airwave of the driver and revive Rusty Wallace while he was still in his destroyed race car. Truly a remarkable story to come from a side reporter, but that is nothing compared to an incident that happened later that same year. In the final ARCA race at Atlanta Motor Speedway in November, 42 drivers entered into the Atlanta Journal 500K in hopes to ride off into the off-season on a high note. Dr. Jerry Punch was helping with the coverage of the race as a pit reporter in Turn 1, and it seemed to be like any other race at the iconic racetrack. That was until one driver got into the wall in Turn 4 and tried to dive into pit road in front of the entire field.
22 and a crash. Oh, a terrible crash. Up in turn number 4. And we now confirm that the car that was involved and became airborne and overturned was the number 50 machine driven by Don Marmer. And
Lee Raymond in the number 1 car made heavy contact in turns 3 and 4 after battling for position with the ARCA champion that year, Tracy Leslie, in the 72. Raymond thought it was best to take his car down pit road immediately after damage was done to the right side of the car. Whether this was done out of anger or by a poor last-second decision is still up for debate. Regardless, it caused everyone behind him to take evasive action to avoid the crippled number 1 machine. As most drivers moved to the top of the track, one car decided to stay at the bottom, the number 50 of Don Marmer. Marmer slammed into the side of the 1 car, causing the machine to head towards the pit wall entrance. That was only blocked off by some industrial-sized tires filled with sand. The car would then ricochet into the air while doing 2 flips in midair. Don Marmer's car came to rest a few yards from the impact zone of the pit entrance. The scene was horrendous, as the steering wheel impaled the driver, which pinned him inside the race car. The scene was so grim that when it was announced over the radio, many assumed that the driver had passed away. Everyone was ready to accept the worst. Well, except for one person, Dr. Jerry Punch. Once Dr. Jerry Punch received the news, the reporter ran over to the scene and immediately turned from a pit reporter to an emergency medical physician. Jerry Punch tucked his microphone into his pocket and for the next 45 minutes worked with track officials, the infield care team, and the nearby medical center in order to extract Don Marmer, revive him, keep him in stable condition, and have him airlifted so that he could survive this harrowing incident. At one point, Dr. Jerry Punch was even getting an IV to his heart while extracting the steering wheel that was impaled into the driver's chest. Truly a remarkable story that was unfolding at the Atlanta Speedway, and it was because of one hero. Don Marmer eventually made a full recovery, but decided to never race in the ARCA Series again, as he felt like he had already cheated death once, and there was no point in risking it again. The Marmer family have expressed how thankful they are to Dr. Jerry Punch on multiple occasions, and it's something that means a lot for the now 72-year-old. Many racing fans look at Dr. Jerry Punch quite fondly for his time in the sport, for what he has done for his broadcasting time with ESPN. However, for someone like myself, I not only admire him for that, but also for moments like this in his long career in motorsports, as even though we have experienced these moments in NASCAR where time froze, time kept going for him, and he made sure that these moments didn't become tainted in forever tragedy.